to honor the commitment and the sacrifice that our warriors have made by keeping our promise to them. We have done amazing things in a bipartisan manner over the last few years, making sure that our warriors are cared for both in battle and when they returned home. Not least amongst those was the robust post 9/11 GI Bill championed by these groups here, and again you'll hear from folks like Paul Rykoff who helped make this happen, and these legislators. We're here today to ask and send a strong message that the House moved a piece of legislation on a Monday afternoon in suspension with 5 minutes of debate that is a very good piece of veteran legislation. In fact, many of us authored pieces in that. The problem goes with the pay for it, and it goes back on a promise. It crosses a line that many of us up here are unwilling, all of us up here are unwilling to cross. It's a promised benefit to a current warrior that will be rescinded while they're still in the service and doing their time, and that is the transferability of the GI Bill to this new generation of warriors. It was crafted specifically with an understanding that we have older warriors to keep them in longer. They may use it for their families, and to pay for a good piece of legislation, H.R. 3016, this was the pay for. We asked that it not be there. We asked that in the entire federal government there was no place else that we could find to fund things like pilot projects for guide dogs, and the answer apparently was no. The good news is the Senate has yet to vote on Senate Bill 425, and we're asking that that folks make their presence known, make folks known that that will not stand, and you're going to hear from some folks who it's affected. So you see, we're being joined by Representative Dutwork and others, but it's an honor for me to introduce a colleague of mine from Massachusetts. This is a place where a lot of people talk duty, honor, country. Some just live it. Seth Moulton.
It's an honor to be here with so many colleagues and so many veterans. You know, when we ask American troops to put their lives on the line for the country, when we ask them to swear an allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, we don't expect them to go back on that promise. And yet that's what's happening in Washington today. We make a sacred promise to our troops and to their families. And it's also a good investment, by the way. You know, some people have called the GI Bill the best piece of legislation ever passed by the United States Congress, because you get about $7 in benefits for every $1 in cost. So when we make a promise like that, which is also a good investment, that's not something that we should change. And the same loyalty that we expect of our troops is loyalty that we ought to exercise here in Congress. So that's why I signed this pledge. Someone who went to school on the GI Bill, who went to school on the post 9/11 GI Bill, someone who counted on those benefits being there when I got out and went to school myself. So I signed this pledge, and I'm proud to stand with so many other distinguished members who signed that pledge and are going to make sure that this doesn't change. Thank you very much. And it's now my honor to introduce a fellow post 9/11 veteran, someone who's been a great mentor to me in the United States Congress, Tulsi Gabbard.
Aloha. I am proud to be here with my fellow veterans and people who understand how important these benefits are. You know, every single day, and I'm sure my colleagues would say the same thing, we get calls from veterans, calls from our friends, from our brothers and sisters in arms who are facing challenges and who are seeking opportunity. I'm still serving in the Hawaii Army National Guard, and when I go home and do my drill weekend duty, I get asked by my fellow soldiers, what is Congress doing now? What benefit is Congress trying to strip away from veterans now? They understand what's happening here and understand specifically with this GI Bill, a benefit that has been something that our veterans could depend on, that they knew was there ever since World War II, and that this generation, this post 9/11 generation of veterans knew was there for them as well as their family members. This promise of opportunity, this promise of being able to know that you have a place to go when you lay the uniform down, to be able to set yourself and your family up for success, and to be able to continue that mission of service when you're back here at home. So this is a challenge. This pledge is a challenge from us as veterans, as members of Congress, to the country and to our colleagues, to defend the GI Bill, to stand up and speak out for our veterans, to stand up and speak out for those who've sacrificed so much, to say, don't you dare take these benefits away. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Congresswoman Tammy Duffy.
Thank you, Tulsi. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here. You know, when we look at our troops in the eye and we ask them to do their mission and we talk to them about the promises this nation makes to them, they expect us to keep those promises. Just like we expect them to keep their words and run into combat and run into the fight when we ask them to. I also received a degree on the post 9/11 GI Bill, but I also know that in my family, my husband has transferred his post 9/11 GI Bill to our daughter Abigail, who's 15 months old. And I want to make sure that that benefit is there for future babies of our troops who are still serving. And it's simply not fair to rob one group of veterans to pay for services that we've already promised to others, and it's simply wrong. That's why I feel so strongly that we must defend the GI Bill. This is an investment in our country, this is an investment in our military men and women, and it certainly does not speak well of us to be going back on the promises that we've made to our veterans. They struggle every day after they leave the service to get the benefits that we've promised them. Let's stop this and stop taking away yet another benefit that we've given them and yank it away, not just from the veterans themselves, but from their children. It's simply unfair, and you know what? It's un-American, and we can do better. Thank you.
So I, unlike my colleagues who have spoken so far, I have not worn the uniform of this great country, and I stand in awe of all of my colleagues who have, and everyone else here who has been brave enough to wear the uniform of our great country and defend all of the blessings that we hold so dear. I can't think of any word other than what a disgrace it would be for us to ask people to put their lives on the line, and we make promises to them that when they come back, we will be there for them, and when they come back, they find nothing but our backs turned to them. So I stand in solidarity with everyone up here, and I hope that everyone in this building here takes note of this and gets the message that we cannot turn our back on brave men and women who are willing to fight for our great democracy. So I hope this message gets out. We have time to turn this around, and I hope that we can. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here, and I'm so happy to be with my colleagues in support of maintaining all of the services that we provide for our nation's veterans. There is absolutely no reason that Congress should cut benefits or break a sacred promise to our nation's veterans, service members, or for any of their family members who have sacrificed really so very, very much for our nation. If Republicans are going to insist upon to pay for improving for veterans programs, then we should cut. If they want to offset and make benefit cuts, then we should be cutting corporate welfare instead of undermining our promise for veteran programs like their education and like their housing. As a member of the House Veteran Affairs Committee, I'm tired of hearing that we can't find the money to pay for important health care programs, for education, and for the disability benefits that our veterans have earned and deserve. We cannot treat veteran benefits like a piggy bank to crack open when budgets get tight. So thank you all for being here. Caring for our veterans should be Congress's highest priority, and we should never, ever break the solemn promise that we have made. Thank you very much.
Let me just join with my colleagues in their praise for the veterans, the brave men and women who stand behind me, the sacrifice that Tammy has made, the incredibly inspiring service of Tulsi, of Seth, and my hero on the VA committee, Tim Walz. No one for whom I have greater respect on the VA committee and maybe in the U.S. Congress than Tim, who really represents leadership, sacrifice, and service above self. But it's very much reflective of the stories that I see every day from the veterans I represent, and some of the absolute badasses behind me, like Paul Rykoff and IAVA, who provide the pressure and the passion to force us to do what sometimes, for whatever political reasons, is thought to be undoable. And just like this bill, which unfortunately passed the House, but has a chance to be stopped in the Senate, has a chance to be reconciled in a way that won't put the cost on the backs of veterans or their dependents, there's still an opportunity to change this. And we will do it, if we do it, because of the organized activity of veterans who inspire us both by their service in uniform and now out of uniform, their continued advocacy, their continued service, and the force that makes us do what is right by them and so many other veterans. So I want to thank them for their advocacy. If we triumph in this, it will be because of them. So thank you. Tim, thanks for bringing us together. Yeah.
Thank you. Tim, thanks very much. I would just want to second what everyone else has said. I've been so impressed since being here, being around Tulsi and Seth and Tim and Tammy, who are really inspirational to me. And I just bring the message from my part of the country, from Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. What I don't understand is this. We are asking our military to do incredible things and have been asking them to do those things since 9/11, and we ask them to do those things today. And I do not understand why, instead of talking about restricting, we need to be expanding these benefits, because there should be no question that when someone comes back from service, that they have the education benefits, their families have the benefits, they have the health care, seamless health care benefits, and they have a job. So we need to focus on expansion, not restriction. And there's certainly, as has been mentioned, plenty of opportunities in the budget and elsewhere to find a way to pay for this. So Tim, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Gwen.
Good afternoon. My name is Gwen Graham. I represent the north part of Florida, where we have a tremendous amount of veterans. And I just want to say thank you to all of the people standing behind me, whether you are have served our country in Congress or whether you've served as a veteran. We owe it to our veterans to do everything we can each and every day to keep our promise to those that have protected our freedoms. And it is my absolute promise to those that have served our country that I will do everything I can every day to fight for you, since you fought for us. So thank you so much. And I actually would love to hear from some of the veterans too. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from someone who many of you are familiar with, is a force of nature, and we're speaking on behalf of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America and the VSOs, who you heard Mr. O'Rourke so eloquently say are the driving force behind this. Paul Rykoff.
Thank you, sir. Well, if we're a force of nature, maybe we made the sun shine too. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is a very, very important moment. But it's a moment that really shouldn't have to happen. We've got many members of Congress here. Every single member of Congress should be standing behind us right now. Every single presidential candidate, the president, the Secretary of Defense, the VA Secretary, everybody in America should be standing here today to defend the GI Bill. The last time I stood in this spot, it was, I think, the end of last year, when we stood to fight to extend Zadroga benefits for responders after 9/11. I thought that was the stupidest point I'd seen in Washington. This is a whole new level of stupid. This is a whole new level of stupid, to cut the GI Bill in a time of war when men and women are actually fighting and dying right now overseas. This is about keeping a promise. This is about investing in the future. It's also about retention. It's about recruiting, and it's about morale. What kind of message does it send to people serving overseas right now when they hear Congress is cutting the GI Bill? Find the money somewhere else. The GI Bill is the most effective government investment of our generation. Over 1 million post-9/11 veterans have gone to school using the GI Bill. Right now, tourists are walking by saying, what's going on over there? And we're telling them that Congress is trying to cut the GI Bill. We should be outraged. This is bipartisan. And we're calling people out. We testified, we took private meetings. Now we're talking to the media, and we're talking to the American people. Either you're with us or you're against us. We're calling on Chairman Isaacson. We're calling on Senator Blumenthal, Senator McCain, Senator Reid, Senator McConnell. The presidential candidates, every single one of them, should stand with us and defend the GI Bill. It doesn't matter what party you're from or how you feel about the war. This is a sacred promise to our men and women in uniform. We are drawing a line in the sand. Do not cross it. Do not use the GI Bill as a piggy bank. Stand with our veterans. They thought they could slip this through. They thought no one was paying attention. We were paying attention, and we're not just going to let it slide. So we're honored to stand here on behalf of IAVA members nationwide, many of them here with me today, and our brothers and sisters in many other VSOs. The VSOs can stand together and pack a powerful punch. We've done it before, we're going to do it again today. And we're going to continue until it stops. This should be resolved quickly. It should definitely be resolved before Memorial Day. If we have to stand here around Memorial Day and talk about cuts to the GI Bill, our entire country should be shamed. So I hope it doesn't come to that point. I'm going to introduce a few other friends from our VSO partners. Today we're going to have the Air Force Sergeants Association, the Association of the United States Navy, the Commissioned Officers Association, Vietnam Veterans America, the Military Order of the Purple Heart are with us, and Americans are with us from all across the country and all around the world. But first I'm going to introduce our partner and friend Jim Curry, the Executive Director of the Commissioned Officers Association. Jim?
The post-9/11 GI Bill is an incredible recruitment and retention tool for officers in the United States Public Health Service. Not because they use the bill themselves, because for the most part they don't. They already have a college degree, in many instances several college degrees, before they join the Public Health Service. So what's critical for them is the ability to transfer it to their spouses and their children. And this bill would cut that. It would harm that. And thereby it would hurt recruiting and retention for the officers in this one of the uniformed services that serves our country in times of Flint, Michigan water problems, Ebola in West Africa, and Zika in this United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next up is the Air Force Sergeants Association, represented by Command Sergeant Major and the COO, Mark Stevenson. Mark? Give it up for Mark. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me echo what Paul Reichoff said. Every member of Congress should be standing behind us today. So to that point, I do want to thank the representatives that are standing behind us and fighting for their veterans and the rights that they have been, the benefits that they have been promised from Congress. Let me start by also thanking Paul Reichoff and IAVA to allow AFSA to partner in this issue. Our organization has been around for 55 years. This country has been in war for 15 of those 55 years, and I would offer that many of our members are deployed today in harm's way. Some of them may not come home. And as we look at that, we've got family members that are holding down the home front today that are also serving and sacrificing in their own right. We have what I call non-uniform wearers in husbands, wives, sons, and daughters that were promised a benefit from Congress to pay for their education for that sacrifice. And right now, Congress is not living up to that point, with the exception of the individual standing behind me. To cut that undermines the sacrifice that these family members give each and every day. And as long as we are at war, that benefit needs to remain intact. We're asking them to sacrifice each and every day for this country, and we're not living up to that promise. So I ask Congress to do that. I urge Congress and our fellow VSOs and MSOs to oppose any bill that modifies the post-9/11 GI Bill at all, and allow our family members to go to school and better themselves as Congress has promised. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. And batting cleanup today is going to be Bernard Edelman from the Vietnam Veterans of America. Hey. Bernard?
I think a little bit of history is instructive here. It was veterans from the First World War in Congress, led by Wright Patman of Texas, who enacted the 1944 GI Bill. This was a path to a vibrant middle class for Americans who served, 16 million of them during the Second World War. Promises were made to this latest generation of veterans, 2.5 million of whom have served overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places. You can't say no to them after you've said yes to them. Simply the wrong way of doing things. And nobody can tell me that Congress can't find money elsewhere. You've got the Overseas Contingency Fund worth something like $3 billion. It's a scam to say that we can't find the money, and we got to take it off another veterans program. It's been the tenet of Vietnam Veterans of America that you don't rob Peter to pay Paul. You simply don't do it. You've made a promise to veterans and the families of veterans, and you damn well gotta keep it. And some of the people, we work with folks from both sides of the aisle, from all sides of the aisle. You keep your promises, and if you don't know what it's like to be a veteran, then go talk to the veterans, and then re-examine why you might want to take something from them and from their families, because it's wrong, and everybody here is going to fight for what is right. Thank you.
Just a couple thoughts I'm going to throw back over to Congressman Walz. Over 15,000 folks have already taken action online to contact their members of Congress. If you go to IAVA.org, you can see the pledge we put out there. There's an easy way for everybody to get involved. We're calling on all Americans to stand with us and defend the GI Bill. The hashtag. Look at the hashtag online. Look on Twitter and hear the stories of veterans who testify to how their lives have been changed, how their children's lives have been changed. This is a part of an omnibus. We understand there. Lots of good stuff in the omnibus. But yes, IAVA will oppose the entire omnibus unless they remove this cut. Remove the cut. Find the money somewhere else. If you ask the American public to do a bake sale to pay for it, they would do it. But don't hide it in the omnibus and try to skirt that responsibility. This is a sacred promise and it must be upheld. So defend the GI Bill. And I will ask everybody in the press, please, particularly, ask them the hard question. Do you support the cuts to the GI Bill? Yes or no? Don't let them dodge the question. Ask every member of Congress where they stand on this issue, every presidential candidate and the president himself. We need a strong statement from the president that he will stand with us in this line in the sand and defend the GI Bill once and for all. And thankfully, back to my colleague and friend, Tim Walz, a real champion for all of us. It's important to note there are a lot of veterans in Congress right now. They are driving the discussion and they're driving veterans' issues. There was a day when there were only a few of us. Now there are many, many more. And I hope that this is a real sign of things to come and a silver lining and a testimony to the power of the GI Bill. If we defend the GI Bill, there'll be a lot more veterans in Congress. Tim, back to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for showing up today and understanding how important this is. You heard the passion here. It's a very simple proposition. Don't cross that line. Keep your promise. They'll do what's asked of them. They always have. So with that, myself and my colleagues be glad to answer any questions.
Congressman, are you prepared to vote against the entire omnibus?
Yes, I am too, even though I authored the legislation.
The veterans benefit has been bipartisan, but I'm seeing only Democrats here today.
Well, I can't speak for my colleagues whether or not. We tried to get everybody involved on this. It came up in suspension on Monday a few weeks ago. Some of you saw it, and I had my 5 minutes to speak against it, and I felt like in the form of camaraderie and bipartisanship, at that point in time I did not ask for a recorded vote to try and fix this. It's not been fixed yet, and I think Paul expressed it. We're going to have to up the leverage a little bit, and I think at the end of the day, though, my colleagues, I am not questioning their commitment to veterans, and I'm not questioning that they want to get this right. I think they were put in a position because of the unbending budget fiasco that's happening around here right now, and they were asked to find the money specifically in veterans, and I think most of them do not want to do that. I think that's what's happening now, and I think it's two things coming together with their budgeting impasse and this piece of legislation being pushed in the Senate.
So what about the counter-argument you put out there that this money is getting more directed to veterans this way? This is actually going to dependents, and in a lot of cases not even being used by dependents.
You know the answer, Leo. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. This is an unprecedented cut to the GI Bill. They are cutting from the GI Bill and putting it in something else. There have been cuts within the GI Bill. They've shifted money within the GI Bill before. But it is the first time in modern history, since we passed this in 2008, that they're actually removing funds from the GI Bill. This is an important part of Chairman Isaacson's legacy. Does he want to be the first Senate Veterans Affairs Committee chairman to cut the GI Bill? He will be if he lets this go forward. And the President, McConnell, everybody else, this will be part of their legacy. If this goes through, they are the people who allowed the first cut in history to the post-9/11 GI Bill.
And Leo, what I would add too on this, those who made the claim that it was overly generous, that was made on the floor when we were debating this, and I question who gets to make that determination. The idea was that it was overly generous because you took a number that it's a housing stipend that, guess what, it's expensive to live in New York City. But we didn't ask the veteran when they went where their children were going to go to school and tell them don't and you can't go in New York City to New York University. So they're making the case that it's inefficient because of that reason. That is not a good reason. Even if by any stretch of the imagination you believed it was overly generous, we're making the case, and that's not for us to determine now and to pull it back, because the Congress's intent was to make this transferable, to make it permanent, and to make it to be used by anyone wherever they went. So I reject that argument that's been, and don't get me wrong, the omnibus has pieces of legislation that all of us up here actually authored, things that I want to see get through, and I believe they still can. The issue is, why does it have to be paid for by cutting the GI Bill? That's what we're asking. Find it elsewhere. Absolutely.
When we ask our troops to make a promise to us, to run into battle, we don't accept it when they turn around and say, you know what, now that the bullets are flying, the cost's a little bit high, I'm not going to go. We would not accept that. So how dare we decide years later, after we've made this promise, after people enlisted or stayed in the military, partially because of this benefit, to say, you know what, we decide it's too expensive. You cost us too much. Well, you know what, running into battle costs our troops everything. And they're willing to give it over and over again. Don't cut it.
Anyone else got time for another one or two?
Just curious, I mean, you're in the business for a while. You must know where you'd like to see the cuts come from then to make this happen, to allow this to keep going.
Well, I made the suggestion on the very day that they did this. The chairman in the House put out a scathing critique of the bonuses going to the VA. Let's start there. I'm willing to take a look at that if that's a place where we need to go. They keep coming back and saying, well, you come up where the cuts are. The problem we've got is it's the leadership in the House that is not allowing us to look at program-wide or budget-wide. They're focused on saying if you're dealing with the GI Bill or GI, it's got to come from that. I think that is not the way to go, and I think you heard it from these folks. The American public is more than willing to make this happen. Give them the opportunity. So my first suggestion is maybe let's take a look at those bonuses and see if there's some money there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
I mean, thank you.